Hi, everybody. I'm Andrea Flack-Wetherald, and I am live again today with the 10th installment of the Lunch and Breathe series. So if you are brand new to this, Lunch and Breathe is a weekly series I've been doing for 10 weeks in a row. And I just realized that I didn't adjust my camera, so you can't see all my janky stuff in the background. Cool. So Lunch and Breathe is a weekly series that I do because I care a ton about mindfulness, and it's really changed my life and my experience of doing the work that I'm on this planet to do. And I know that we are going through a difficult time right now. And so I think it's good to start the week Mondays at noon. I do this every week to just take a mindful moment and be intentional about what we're going to do with our week, what we're going to do with our attitude, what we're going to do inside of ourselves to make sure that we are really connecting with ourselves, connecting with the people around us to make sure that we're communicating well. And mindfulness can be a really powerful tool for doing that. So if you didn't see the topic ahead of time, this week I'm talking about what to do when somebody that you love is in emotional chaos, is experiencing maybe a crisis in the middle of this, or they are experiencing emotional chaos, and how do you not get dragged down into that? So, this is an important thing. I know what it feels like to get sucked into the darkness because somebody that I love is sucked into the darkness. And to be fully transparent, I also know what it is to be the one that's stuck in darkness. And I'm sure the people around me have had to work hard to figure out how to support me without getting pulled down into my darkness. I do have a charismatic personality and I speak with authority. And so there are times when my light has been extinguished temporarily, and I know that my words carry weight to the people in my life, and it can be a thing that they're getting sucked into that with me. So I've been on both sides of that. And I think that it's good to be honest about that. I never want to put up a front oh, look at me, I practice mindfulness and now therefore I'm not impacted at all by my surroundings. That's certainly not the case. So I wanted to share with you, if you didn't see the picture for this week, this is what it looks like. And the reason that I'm drawing your attention to this, the theme, simple extreme support, how to keep from sinking when someone you love is hurting. So the picture in the background is not one of the ones that I usually use. If you follow my work, you know that often I use a headshot or just some kind of professional looking image, and this is not that. So that's a picture of my husband and I in our third year of marriage. And we are down in North Carolina in the Buncombe County area, just outside of Asheville. It's a place that we love a whole lot, and we go pretty much as often as we can. And we're standing up at this really beautiful overlook right before we needed to drive back to Pittsburgh. And the reason that this picture is so significant to me is that I was going through a really, really difficult time then professionally. My light was extinguished for sure. I was working at a job. I loved the work of my job. But I was not in a good place. And at the time, I was blaming that on my boss completely. Maybe you know what that feels like to be going through a hard time. And it's really difficult to take responsibility of your mental health. It's really difficult to take responsibility of the ways in which I was not speaking up for myself. I was not taking ownership. I was not getting the help that I needed. And I was sinking. And so I was blaming that on everyone and everything around me. And it is certainly the case that my work environment was not a healthy one, and it served my purpose as well to move on from that. But I was sinking. I was not sleeping. I was waking up in the night with chest pain. My hair was falling out. I was not eating a bunch. I just would have horrible nightmares every time I would try to sleep. And I was actually thinking about some pretty dark things. I don't want to traumatize anybody else or say things that you weren't prepared to hear. But I was not in a good place. I was very much not in a good place. And on this trip, my husband and the two friends that we were visiting down in North Carolina had an intervention. And they were like, Andy, this is not who you are. This is not who you are. What's going on? and, really kind of sharing with me the way that my brokenness was touching Kyle, was touching some of the people in my life, and trying to support me and help me. And I'm so thankful for that conversation, because their love and support during that very difficult time helped me, get the help that I needed and make better choices for myself to get to a better place. So, that story has a happy ending. We were looking at this view. I remember my thought in that moment, standing up, I don't know if you can tell, we're standing on a picnic table to get even a little bit higher to enjoy that overlook. And I just was thinking, like, we're about to drive all the way back to Pittsburgh, and then I won't be in this beautiful place anymore. And I have to face my boss. I have to face reality. And just like the heaviness of that was right on my heart. So maybe you know what that feels like. So the reason that I share this story is that I think a lot of times when we imagine supporting someone that's in emotional chaos, what we imagine is a situation like what my friends and my husband were able to do for me, of saying, whoa, you are really going through a hard time. Maybe saying, I'm worried about you. Maybe saying, hey, your behavior is kind of hurtful. Whatever the case may be, we imagine this confrontation of sorts, a loving confrontation, but we imagine something like that when we think of being in a situation where somebody else is kind of sucking you into the darkness. But it doesn't have to be like that. So what I want to share with you this morning is that if you have been kind of pulled into emotional chaos, emotional darkness, you're getting distracted away from your purpose, from shining your light because of somebody else's darkness, I want to share with you some other ways that you can deal with that, because it's really important that you do two things. One, that you take back control of your light. What the world needs right now is not for all the lights to get extinguished. It is okay right now for people to be hurting. It is okay for them to be on their journey of processing what is happening. It is okay for them to be verbalizing their hurt and their pain. We are strong enough to receive that, yes? But it is also okay for your light not to get extinguished, okay? Think how terrifying it would be if all the lights were just gone across the whole world. That's not what we need. It might feel like that. And I know what it feels like, when I'm going through a hard time, to almost be like angry and resentful and even lash out at people who were like living their best life, or so it seemed. I mean, you never know what's happening. So maybe if you are someone that's trying to shine a light and trying to be positive, maybe you've been the recipient of that. Maybe you know what that feels like to have somebody lash out at you. And then you're just so confused and it feels so topsy-turvy. Like, how do I be who I am? How do I do what I need to do during this time? So we're going to talk about two things. We're going to talk about how to take back control of your emotional boat. And second of all, we're going to talk about how to support this person in a way that's healthy and safe for both of you. So that's our objective. So the first thing that I want to share with you, I have some notes here. The first thing I want to share with you is this improv ritual that's always been so meaningful to me. So before every show, the players on a team make eye contact with one another when we're off stage or in the green room, and we touch each person on the shoulder and we say, I've got your back. And the reason we do that, there's lots of reasons. For our purposes right now, I just want to talk about what that means. Like, it's important to do it before every show so that you get grounded in, I'm not here to take over. I'm not here to be the star of the show. This is teamwork, what we're doing. This is collaboration, what we're doing. So it's really good to ground yourself in that. But let's talk for our purposes right now about what that means to have your back. Because I have shared when I'm speaking or when I'm on site with clients, I've shared before about this idea of sacrificial support. And that is true, and that does matter, especially when we're talking about servant leadership. That's a very critical concept. But there's a difference between sacrificial support and martyrdom support, okay? We're not talking about martyrdom support. So what we mean when we say, I've got your back, is we're saying, I took some notes here, that's why I'm looking down. We're saying, even when I don't understand, I'll look for your perspective. We're saying, I'll notice when I'm not needed. Sometimes support means you've got this and you don't need me to come out here and rescue you. I'll stay on the sides and I'll keep listening. Sometimes that's what it means. We're saying, I'll trust your instincts. We're saying, I'll honor your contributions, even if you offer them in a way that's different from how I would do that. That's what we mean when we say, I've got your back. That's what's behind that, because we're saying, I've got your back. When we get out there and the lights go down and they come back up and it's dark in the room and the spotlight is just on us and people have paid money for us to be funny and there's pressure and you don't know who's in the audience, I am not going to be in survival mode looking for how I can make sure I don't get embarrassed or whatever, or I can make sure I'm the brightest shining star. I'm here for you. I've got your back. That's what we do every time. And it's a beautiful tradition. And it means so much to me that Kyle and I, especially during foster care, we incorporated that into our marriage a lot. I remember walking into a family court hearing, and it was a very difficult hearing. The anticipation was that the judge was going to decide one way or the other. Will the children be adopted, or will the children be reunified with the person, not their birth mom, but the person that would have gotten them? It's very complicated. But we had been a family for over a year. Our hearts were just absolutely pounding. We're in the waiting room with the children's birth family. It's so awkward. I can't really even fully help you understand the weight of that moment and what that felt like, to know we are walking into something that is potentially going to be devastating. It's going to be devastating to somebody that's in this room right now. And we walked in and I was sweating. I had sweat dripping down my stomach. I was so what is about to happen right now? And Kyle pulled me back before we walked in and he touched me on the shoulder and he said, "Hey, I've got your back." And I said the same thing to him, "I've got your back too." And I just remember that feeling of okay, we've got this. And it was this simple gesture that reminded me who I really am and reminded me what our relationship is really about. So there's a ritual here that I think is really significant. So when it comes to the experience of seeing somebody that you love in chaos right now, maybe they've lost their job, maybe they're sick, maybe they are riding out this storm in a vessel that has completely different seaworthiness than the vessel that you're riding it out in. I heard somebody say, we're all in this together. Yes, we are all in the same storm, but we are not experiencing it in vessels that have the same seaworthiness. And so we are having different experiences, and it matters to remember that as we are experiencing it, right? So when we're talking about having each other's backs right now, and you see someone that you love and they are lashing out, they are angry, they're hurt, they're scared, one thing that it's really easy to do is feeling like you are having empathy. You think that you're doing this because of empathy, but kind of appropriating some of their trauma and taking this on into yourself. And then feeling it as if it's your own pain, as if it's your own crisis. And I know that can feel like the necessary thing. I grew up in the church, and we talk often about sharing each other's burdens, sharing the load, and that's beautiful and that's important. But there is a deeper discussion to have here. You cannot claim somebody else's crisis. And the reason is that you can't claim the peaceful moments that they are experiencing in that. Let me tell you that when I was in the middle of my own crisis, I couldn't hear other people talking about the silver lining and talking about the positive things that came from it. That was a hugely hurtful thing, for someone else to try to tell me what I was supposed to be learning in the middle of all this. But that doesn't mean that there weren't those moments for me. I absolutely was having this beautiful moment of my friends being vulnerable with me, my husband being vulnerable with me and reaching out to me. I had the incredible ability to then go through a difficult time of leaving that job with no plans, but then realizing who I really am and getting tapped into what I'm passionate about. And there were good things in the middle of that struggle, but they were deeply personal things that nobody else could really have taken ownership of. So since you can't take ownership of the redemption, when you take ownership of somebody else's crisis, you're going to get lost in the sadness. You're going to get lost in the sadness because you're not truly living in their crisis. And so you're not seeing the moments of beauty, and you're not seeing the moments of optimism, and you're not seeing the moments of hope and resilience, And so you're getting only a one-sided picture. And by the way, it's incredibly condescending, especially if you're not really on someone's journey. They're like some random person from high school that maybe you loved a long time ago, and their Facebook posts are super bumming you out right now. Just remember that there is joy everywhere in the world. It is hurtful and condescending to assume that there are some places where there's just no joy. But since you can't experience that firsthand, that's what makes it so very troublesome when we appropriate trauma and then take on all of somebody's hurt and sadness without the ability to see that in 3D Technicolor, without the ability to see the fullness of what their life truly is, because there are moments of grace and beauty and joy. But we just can't claim that, and we can't see that because we're not seeing life directly through their eyes. So that's the first thing that I want to encourage you, is not to appropriate trauma in the name of empathy. Empathy is not the same thing as internalizing all of somebody else's pain and hurt. Okay, so the second thing here is maybe they've hurt you, maybe they've lashed out at you, or maybe you're taking blame for some of their state of being. So this has been, I've shared even on LinkedIn and on Facebook before about the experience of stability guilt and what it feels like to be weathering this storm in a vessel that's pretty seaworthy, you know, and I'm hurting for my friends, especially my friends that have been willing to share openly about job loss or housing and income insecurity, and I'm hurting for them, but I'm not experiencing it the same as them. And there's this part of me that's like, there are so many ways that my spending behavior and that life, like we are connected to each other. And what if my well-being right now has caused their hurt? Is that possible? Like taking on way more responsibility than what I can reasonably do. Like I haven't caused this person not to have a job right now, but I know what it feels like to do that. So if that's you right now, if you are at a place where you are taking on more than your share, then I want to remind you that your time will be better spent participating in the solution and not just looking for how it could possibly be that you have caused this person's situation. I know what that feels like, but participate in systems of justice. Spend your time and your money and your focus on being a part of the solution. That's going to be a much better use of your time. Now let's talk about the, for instance, where maybe they've hurt you, because I had an experience like that in this very pandemic. Somebody that I care about a whole lot has been, I don't want to overshare her story because there's a chance she will see this video. But she has been impacted differently than I have by all of the current events in our country. And so she's been angry and she's been sharing angry things on Facebook, right? And I have felt so hurt by that. I have felt so like, I don't understand, you know, how to even be a person. So there was a lot of white guilt and white fragility happening for me. There was a lot of just general mental health stuff happening for me. I took like a month away from social media of any kind. I almost sunk my business out of just being like, I don't know how to do what I do as a white person. I don't know how to do what I do, you know, as someone whose husband has a stable job. Like, what if that means that my words don't matter or don't count, you know? And it wasn't until just kind of connecting with my therapist, reading some good books, kind of reminding myself who I am, that I was able to bounce back. But I had a powerful realization, which is that it is important for me not to confront this person right now. It is important for me not to have this attitude that's like, you don't know all the things that I'm doing. Like, of course, like you're looking at my Facebook and like part of the issue is she was like, people aren't doing enough. And I'm like, but I'm just not posting about what I'm doing. Like, I don't feel the need to like publicize the stuff that I'm doing behind the scenes. So I felt all this defensive energy is what I want you to understand. I felt very defensive about what was happening. And I felt this need to sort of confront her and be like, you know, speak my piece or whatever, defend myself. And then it was like, no, that's not what she needs. So the important realization that I had is that anger is an important feeling. It's an important stage in the process of healing. Anger feels so much more empowering than depression, than hopelessness, than fear. You know, I don't want my friend to be living in hopelessness, depression, and fear. I don't want her to be in her corner of the world feeling like everything is just going to pot and there's nothing anyone can do about it. The process of her getting to a place where she can be optimistic about herself, optimistic about life, optimistic about the number of people that are rallying behind her and her cause and that are, you know, desperately doing whatever we can to make the world a better place. The only way she will ever be able to feel that way is if she passes through anger. That's just how it works. You don't make a quantum leap from hopelessness to optimism overnight. You pass through anger. That's just the way that feelings work. You pass through a season of anger, and that is healthy and good and normal. And what can happen is that for all of the understandable reasons, we can hurt each other in our process of healing by confronting someone and being like, I can't deal with your anger, by being like, how dare you say this to me or about me or whatever? How dare you make me feel this way? Your feelings are your job. My feelings were my job. I needed to solve that and hammer that out for myself, right? That's not her fault. But I realized like, wow, she's going through an important phase of her journey right now. Like it is important for her to be angry and for her to be angry, I meant to say, and for her to feel that sense of empowerment, And so the thing to understand here is even if the people in your life, because of their emotional chaos, are lashing out at you, there's a really good chance that they're not going to be angry forever. They're going to be angry right now. And then time and the fact that the universe is whispering to them, the fact that they are also people of love. Deep down, they are also people of love, and they will reconnect with that energy. They will. And in time, they will not be lashing out at you or at other people. In time, they will pass through that into, a place of gratitude for progress and for partnership and for whatever. But right now, we don't need to, if you are feeling upset by other people lashing out or whatever, just remember that anger has a role to play. Anger has a role to play in the journey of healing. So let me just look at my notes here. I want to make sure I don't leave anything out. Yeah, it's really easy to get sucked into people's angry comments about, masks or school is such a big thing right now. I have 2 school-aged children, and I can't tell you how often I'm like, people that I love are saying things. They don't maybe realize that we don't see it the same way. And boy, is it easy to get sucked into like self-shame, self-doubt, worry, and get pulled into this chaos instead of being like, wow, I matter too, right? Like my perspective, like I don't need to have somebody else's permission, right? So maybe you need to hear that right now. Maybe you need to be reminded that you don't need somebody else's permission to have the perspective that you have on this. And so if you're getting sucked down into the angriness of social media, maybe just take a break. Like that's one really important thing. Just do what you can not to get sucked in there. And so part of that is just remembering who you are. So to land the plane, step 1 is you need to take control of your own emotions. And remember that no matter what this person is doing, your emotions, your mental health, your emotional health, that's your job. It's not anybody else's job. Don't give that responsibility to anybody else. That's your responsibility. So kind of taking back that ownership and that responsibility can be very helpful and very empowering. And then second of all, support does not have to look like an intervention. It doesn't have to mean that you confront someone and that you say, this is how you're making me feel right now. It can in time. There's, a million situations that could be in your brain right now. But the first step is internal. The first step is you knowing that you are independently okay. You need to know who you are. You need to know why you're here. You need to be about what you're about. Because that's got nothing to do with anybody else. And then you can support them. And sometimes support looks like giving them space. So just a reminder, I want to close by reviewing what we mean when we say, I've got your back in improv. And I want you to think about what that looks like in your situation with someone who is maybe hurting and trying to suck you down into their darkness. Okay. So what would it be like if you call this person to mind? What would it be like to say to them, even if it's just in your heart to their heart, and it's not something that you say person to person right now? What would it be like to say, even though I don't understand, I'll look for your perspective? What would it be like to say, I'll notice when I'm not needed? Like in my situation, my friend didn't need me to be the one stepping in right there. I was not the person that could help her on her journey right then. I was not the person that she needed. And so it was okay for me to just give her some space. And sometimes that's the best option. Sometimes what support looks like is protecting your light, because we don't need all the lights to get extinguished right now. What would it be like to say, I'll trust your instincts, instead of getting defensive and instead of feeling like, that this person is wrong necessarily. What would it be like to trust their instincts and just do a little bit of curiosity instead of certainty about their perspective? And then lastly, I'll honor your contributions even if you offer them in a way that's different from how I would do it. That has given me a lot of peace right now, knowing that when people say things that I disagree with, I take a deep breath and I remind myself, we are all doing a ton of reading right now, and we're all trying to figure out what's best for our families and our kids. I trust that who this person is love at their core. That's their deepest truth, is that they are an extension of love, and I'm going to have faith in that, and I'm going to trust that about them. And then the last concept here is the ritual. So remember, I shared with you that this I've got your back thing that we do is before every show. And so I encourage you, wherever you can plug in that ritual, maybe it's to think about who these people are that you love, that are sucked into emotional chaos right now. And before you talk to them, before you are going to see their posts on social media, do that kind of ritual in your head. I've got your back. I've got your back. So that means that I'm not gonna let you make me hate you, or I'm not gonna let you steer my emotional direction, because that's not what you're intending to do anyway. I'm not gonna let you extinguish my flame. And just kind of ritualize that. Get out ahead of it and ritualize that before you're gonna see their posts, before you're gonna talk to them on FaceTime or whatever. So I hope that these ideas are helpful. More than anything, what I hope that you take away from this is that support can look like a lot of different things. And it matters a whole lot that you protect your flame and that you protect your light. That's your job. You have to be the keeper of your own flame. That's not anybody else's job, even if it's your spouse, even if it's your parent, even if it's somebody that you have loved for a really long time. It's not their job to protect your emotional flame. We are going to get through this. In fact, we already are. Thank you so much for being here. I'll go back through later today and look at comments. And if you guys have any thoughts about this or any additional questions, please do direct message me or leave them in the comments. This is a really important topic right now. So I'd love to keep the conversation going, and I'll check back through the next couple of days. But thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next week at the same time, Monday at noon, for a mindful moment about taking back some control over our inside selves during this time. Thank you guys. Bye-bye.